Our next speaker is close to his advanced communicator goal, but he is taking a break to work on pathways. His goal is to deliver a speech again with suggested improvements. His speech is titled 96 Years of Wisdom. Help me welcome K.C. Snyder.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Can everybody hear me okay? Very good. Okay, I gave this speech back in January. I'm going to try and do it over again. So my grandma lives up in the Kansas City area, and she's 96 years old. She's an amazing lady. She's still sharp. I just want to tell you about a story of her life and share some work with the poem she wrote. So she grew up in Boston. Her father was a civil engineer, and sadly, her father died of pneumonia when she was only 16 in 1939. So it was her mom and her brother and her sister, and there was no life insurance back then. So they had to sell their nice house and move into a little apartment. But she didn't give up, and she kept getting good grades, and she got a scholarship to go to business college. And back then there were very few women in the college, especially business school. And then World War II began, and her mother decided to invite a sailor over for host a sailor event. And sure enough, my grandfather, who was from rural Kansas, was in town to go to radar training at MIT. And I got a picture of him. And so I come from a long line of good-looking nerds, as you can tell, and that's a picture of them right about the time they got married. And then after they met, I think they got engaged, and then he went out to do duty in the Aleutian Islands in Alaska. I heard there's only like 1 day of sunlight out there each year. So that ended, and they got back together and got married. And then they moved out to his hometown of Gardner, Kansas. It's about a half hour southwest of Kansas City. And it was a culture shock, big time. Even more back than it was now. It was just a little town, and it was at least a half an hour drive from Kansas City. So it was like Mayberry, and everybody knew everybody else, literally, not euphemistically. If you were looking for your kid, you could just start calling people, and they would look out their window or outside their store. And the grandpa, he went into the family business that his grandfather had started. It was called Kramer, and they were in the sports medicine. They actually had invented Ben Gay before Ben Gay did, but Ben Gay stole the thunder. But they're still in business, and they mostly do sales with universities. So they had 5 kids, 13 grandkids. I'm the second oldest, and there's 22 grandkids, and there'll probably be a few more. And here's a family picture from about 7 years ago. We had another reunion, and I had to take several pictures to get everybody in. So, yeah. So, quite a legacy. Anyway, the family business went well, and Grandma didn't have to work. She'd had a few like little part-time gigs called Kelly Girls, and they ended up doing a lot of road trips. They got a trailer, and whenever they could, they would visit elder hostels. And Grandma liked to write, and she compiled a bunch of essays and poems, and she decided to give everybody a book of them. And I wanted to share one of my favorites. It's called Migration 1945. It reminds me of a poem that Ed read last year about traveling cross country. Migration, 1945, by Jean Kramer. She rode the train out of Boston, trailing her symbol's identity, the symphony, the library, her college degree, her 300-year-old gentility. She rode out of forests and hills, left the lakes and the ocean, turned her eyes to the west, to the great expanse of sky, to the tawny fields of wheat. She entered the small prairie town, held high, proud, arrogant, lonesome. Years rolled by, season after season. She mingled uneasily with prairie dwellers, felt exposed to the constant winds, and to the endless views, the overwhelming friendliness. Slowly her pride began to fade. Her eyes opened to these good people. The druggist, grocer, telephone operator, farmer. Kind faces came into focus. Time slowed down, hesitated. Friends shared meals and words of compassion. Children roamed all around town, lovingly watched over by many friends. The wide expanse of deep blue skies became glorious and wonderful to her. Tall, quivering cottonwoods along the creeks reminded her of the pioneers journeying always west. Vast fields of golden wheat waved in the wind. Shiny green leaves of corn sparkled in the sun. Love and beauty were here all along. She'd found her home. Thank you, Madam Toastmaster.